Hello and welcome back to Tech Code Blocks. In the previous video we built the database provider and to-do item classes, which are used to store to-do items in a database on the user's device. In this video we'll be starting our main.dart file and building the list page class, which will handle the displaying of the list. We'll make the class to build the components of the list in the next video. We will not be creating the entirety of the main.dart file. We will only be adding the functions to add and delete to-do items, which can then be used by user interface components, which we'll make later, a feature of type list that will be used to store the result of accessing the data in the database, and finally we will include the route to load the list page that we will also be building in this video. Speaking of which, the list page class will contain the home page for our app. It will be passed the future list and the functions to add and remove to-do items. It will use a future builder to create a snapshot of the data from the database, and then pass this to the list section class, which we'll make in the next video in order to make the list. It will also contain a button that will eventually open the page to add a new to-do item. Now we know what we will be making, let's get started. First, we can delete most of the code in the main file, leaving just the function called main. And while we're at the start of the file, you need to add two imports to import the files we created in the previous video, which are to-do item and database provider. Now we can create a class called myApp, which will extend the stateful widget. We will be using a stateful widget as the class needs to respond to changes in data and then update itself in accordance with those changes. In this class, we will need to override the createState function, and this will return underscore myAppState, which is the app state we will create next. The next class, underscore myAppState, will extend the state, and will be returned by the createState function we just made. The opening property is underscore to-do items, which is of type future list to-do item, and this is assigned to the singleton we created in the previous video with a call to the getAll function on the database. Next, we need to create the functions to add and remove to-do items. Initially, we will create the function to remove a to-do item. This function will be passed the integer ID of the to-do item. Inside the function, we call the setState function. In this, we call the deleteItem function in our database provider class, passing it the ID that has been passed to the function that these functions are within. Then, we assign the list of to-do items to the result of getting all of the items in the database, which is the same as what we've done to initially instantiate the to-do items list. Next, we will create the addItem function. This is passed a map containing the data to create a new to-do item. We will then use this data to create a new to-do item using the constructor from the to-do item class. Once more, we call the setState function, this time calling the new to-do item function, and once more assigning the list of to-do items to the new data in the database. The final thing we need to do in the main file for now is override the build function, passing it the build context. We need to return a class type material app, which will be the overall framework for our app. Currently, we only need to add the root property to this class. This will accept a map. We only need one root at the moment, which will be the /root, which if you're familiar with web development will be the home page. The other component of a map is a function, which will pass the build context and return the list page widget, passing it the list of to-do items and the add and delete functions. The list page widget is what we'll be creating in the next section of this video. Now we need to make the list page class. This will be in a new folder in the lib folder called pages, and then in a file called listpage.dart. Within this file we need to import two imports, the material Dart package and the to-do item class that we created in the previous video. The list page widget will be a stateless widget, as we will not be directly dealing with any data or changing the data within this class. The class will have three properties: the same future list to-do item that we had in the main class, and two references to the add and delete functions respectively. Once more, we can use a one-line constructor for this class, passing it the list of type future and the two functions. Once this is completed, it will tie into the call to this constructor in the main method, which we did in the previous section of this video. As you can see, the error which we had before has now disappeared because we are constructing the class correctly. Now we need to create a function that will be used in the future builder to build a list of to-do items that we can use out of the snapshot that is created by the future builder class. This will simply just loop through the data that is provided. The function will return a list of to-do items and be passed an async snapshot. Inside the function, we will start with an empty list, then use a for loop to go through the data in the snapshot and add it to the list. Finally, we return the list that we have created. Now, we need to create the build function for the widget. This will return a scaffold with an app bar containing a text widget with a title of To Do. This will display the name of the app in the bar at the top of the user interface, as is common in many apps and as you saw in the demo at the start of this series. The body of the scaffold will be a future builder to allow us to handle the asynchronous data. We need to give this widget two properties: the future to-do items and the builder, a function which will build out the rest of the UI in, depending on the data provided. In the builder property, we need to create a new function which will be passed build context and an async snapshot of list, which we will call snapshot. Within this function, we will check whether a snapshot doesn't have data. If this is the case, we'll return a column with the first of which will be a text widget, which will tell the user that they have no to-do items and ask them to add some. The second will act as a button. However, we will not be using the default button widget. Instead, we will be using a gesture detector. The onTap property will be a function that opens the root /add_todo, which will eventually take the user to a new page that will allow them to add a new to-do item. The gesture detector will have a child of a container coloured blue. This container will contain a sized box with a width of 700 and a height of 80. Its child will be a centered widget of type text, containing a bold plus symbol coloured white. And this will serve as the Add To-Do Item button. That's it for if we don't have data. Now it's time to build a page for if we do have data. This is much the same, so we can copy and paste the same code for the gesture detector. However, we will also be using an expanded widget to include the list section widget, which we'll be creating in the next video. And this will be the bit where the individual list tiles are actually made. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we will be building the list section widget that we will be using to create the list tiles for the list of to-do items on the home page. However, we have no more code to do in this video, so I shall see you in the next video where we'll be doing that, and in the continuation of the series where by part 6 we will have a fully functional app. Once more, the source code for this entire project can be found in the GitHub link in the description, so if your code isn't working and you want to check it out and see where it lies differently, that will be the first link in the description. Thanks for watching, I will see you in the next video.